Okay, so now we're going to talk about volume. So there is two formulas for volume that we learned in the 5th grade, and the first one is length times width times height, and the second one is base times height. So anytime you're talking about volume, you're talking about a 3D. It's a three-dimensional figure. Okay, so if you're finding the volume of something, it's not just going to be two-dimensional. It's not going to be something flat. It's going to have to be three-dimensional. So we've got a three-dimensional rectangular prism here, and we have a rectangular prism here. So we're going to pick between these two formulas. So over here, I've been given the height, and I've been given the base. So if I'm looking at these two formulas and I know the base, I'm going to go ahead and use my formula, volume equals base times height, because that's what I've been given. Okay, you're always going to want to start out with your formula. So you look at your figure and you say, okay, I don't know the volume, so I'm just going to carry down my V because that's what I'm trying to find. So which one of these numbers represents my base? Well, it's my 32. Sorry, I forgot my squared there. They already found the area of the base of your rectangular prism. Okay, so your B, the number that you're going to plug into your formula for your B is whatever your base was, which was 32. Then anytime you have two letters side by side and there's not a sign in between them, we know that that means multiply. Just like when we have a variable with a coefficient, like if we have 3y, we know that 3 is our coefficient and y is our variable. If there's not a sign between those two, it means multiply. It's exactly the same thing when you're looking at a formula. Okay, so we know that this means base times height. So we know our height is 5, so I'm going to put a 5 there. And so to find volume, all I have to do is what? I have to multiply my 32 times 5. So I'm going to do my multiplication right here. 5 times 2 is 10, carry the 1. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 1 is 16. So the volume of this rectangular prism is 160. I'm going to go look at my unit of measure. It's centimeters. And since I found volume, it's not going to be squared anymore. Since I found volume, it's length times width times height. So this is actually going to be cubed. Okay, so anytime you're finding the volume of any three-dimensional figure, it's always going to be cubed. No matter what your unit of measure is, it can be meters, centimeters, feet, inches, it doesn't matter. It's going to be cubed, okay? Because, again, it's a three-dimensional figure. So that is using our formula base times height. Sometimes, you guys, they're going to give you a rectangular prism or a cube, and they're going to ask you to just find the base. They're going to say, what is the base of this cube? And if you think about it, you can think of a Kleenex box. So here's a cube. And if they wanted you to find just the base, they're asking you to find this surface. Or they could turn this however they want and make really whatever they want to be the base. So you just have to pay attention to what your measurements are, okay? All right, so over here, if I was asked just to find the base of this rectangular prism, I would use my length times my width. Base is really essentially area. So the formula for area is length times width. So the formula for base would also be length times width because it's really representing the same thing, okay? So here's my three measurements that I have. Here's my length, here's my width, here's my height. You can usually tell which numbers represent what if you look closely at the picture. So I'm not going to use my formula for volume equals base times height because I have my length, my width, and my height. So we're going to go ahead and use this formula. So I'm going to always write down my formula. It just helps me keep all my numbers straight. I don't know my volume, so I'm going to just bring down my V. My length is my 5.7. My width is my 2.6. And my height is my 6. So these are the numbers that I'm multiplying together. Okay, so I've got two decimals and I've got a whole number. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply my two decimals together first. That's what it's going to look like. Again, I didn't purposely line up my decimals. They were just both double digits, so that just happened to be how it lined up. So I've got 6 times 7 is 42, carry the 4. I've got 6 times 5 is 30, plus 4 is 34. I'm done with my 6. I'm going to add my 0 placeholder. I'm going to cross out what I've already carried. I'm now multiplying by my 2. So 2 times 7 is 14, so that's going to go right underneath my 2. Carry my 1. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 1 is 11. I'm going to do my addition. I've got 2, I've got 8, I've got 4 and a 1. Right now my decimal's at the end, but look up here. I have 1 number to the right of the decimal here, and I've got 1 in this number as well. So I'm going to move my decimal back twice. It's at the end. I'm going to move it twice. So that 14 and 82 hundredths is just these two things multiplied together. Again, it's kind of like a PEMDAS. This is our expression, right? We just did this math. So now we have volume equals 14 and 82 hundredths, but we haven't done our times 6 yet. This is another great reason to use your formula because it makes sure that you do step by step, just like you do your PEMDAS, to where you don't forget some of the math, okay? So now we're multiplying 14 and 82 hundredths times 6 to get our final answer. So we have 14 and 82 hundredths times 6. Again, put your numbers just where they would if they didn't have any decimals in them. So 6 times 2 is 12, carry the 1. 8 times 6 is 48, plus 1 is 49, carry the 4. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 4 is 28, carry your 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Now, right now my decimal's at the end, but I have to look up here. This time I have 2 digits to the right of the decimal. I don't have any digits to the right of the decimal here because my number is a whole number, so my decimal's at the end, so I don't have anything here, okay? So I'm only going to move my decimal back twice. So it's at the end, I'm going to move it back twice. My volume equals 88 and 92 hundredths. I come over here and look at my unit of measure. It's meters. And again, it's volume, so it's going to be cubed. Length times width times height. So my volume for this rectangular prism is 88 and 92 meters cubed. And that's how you use your formulas for volume.